our governor's effort to fill the void. And Nathan?
Yeah, thank you, Chairman Arrington. I appreciate the time. This is vitally important. I represent Northeast Texas, 17 counties in Northeast Texas, and I can tell you, even though we are not physically located along the border, we feel the effects of the lack of border policy by the Biden administration. And you know, one of the reasons why is, besides their lack of willingness to enforce the rule of law, is simply their unwillingness to prioritize those things that are most important. And you can see that in the budget that's been laid out by the president in his proposed budget. Not surprisingly, he has other priorities besides the border security measures that need to be put in place. Biden's proposed budget for the Department of Homeland Security this year requests only $535 million in border security technology. At the same time, it requests a full $3.9 billion on DHS's climate resilience programs and an additional $123 million for DHS to, quote, support market-shaping investments into zero-emission vehicles. Now, I think those priorities are upside down. We see it also in the allocation of personnel for border security measures in 2016, in fiscal year 2016, under the Obama administration. The U.S. Immigration and Customs Enforcement had 805 full-time equivalents for fugitive operations. Last year, there were only 721, and this year, in President Biden's budget, he only requests 733. That's incredibly low for the work that needs to be done by fugitive operations. I was dismayed yesterday as we took part of the Judiciary Committee and listened to Secretary Mayorkas avoid question after question. He refused to answer even the most basic of questions, like what happened to the 1.2 million people that have been released by the DHS into the United States after illegally coming here. Have they actually had their cases adjudicated? Has anybody been deported as a result of those adjudications? The chairman yesterday, Chairman Jordan, pressed on this issue several times and never could get even the most basic of estimates from Secretary Mayorkas. And then simply, what is being done to track down the 1.5 million gotaways in addition that have successfully evaded apprehension since President Biden was sworn into office? It's incredible to see the lack of transparency by this administration and the lack of action, which drives Texans to say we've got to step up and fill that gap, where the gap has been created by inaction here in Washington, D.C. So we applaud Governor Abbott and his actions to step up and to fill that gap, deploying these floating marine barriers, signing landmark legislation such as to designate Mexican drug cartels as foreign terrorist organizations, to expand the authority of U.S. Border Patrol agents who have completed training from the Texas DPS to include arrest, seizure, and search at the established border checkpoints, and to legalize the use of unmanned aircrafts to monitor the Texas-Mexico border as part of Operation Lone Star. This is good and it's important work. It's work that Texans, frankly, shouldn't have to be doing if the federal government would step up, if this administration would step up and to do the job it needs to do on the southern border. So I applaud Governor Abbott for his efforts. I am ashamed of the efforts we've been doing here in Washington, D.C. We've passed a really great bill out of the House that's now stuck in the Senate on border security. Has a lot of the important things in place that need to happen, bringing back some very important policies on the executive side that should be enforced presently but are not being enforced presently. We need that bill to move forward. And if we continue to shirk our responsibility here in Washington, D.C., Texans have no choice but to step up and defend its homeland as well. Thank you. I appreciate your time.
Thank you, Rep. Moran. We'll take one more question.